Blessings, my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, we've been requested to present some things about the art of improving the quality of Japa, of our Japa. And so, let us have a look at some aspects of the subject, at least to some degree, maybe in ways which are a little more subtle than we generally look at the subject. And this is, of course, a subject, the chanting of our japa. It's a subject which is very well known, very important, and regularly talked about. So let's look at it, but as I said, at least in certain respects, in ways which are a little more subtle than general. And this is my first class since the hospital and my amazing experience in the hospital. So please bear with me. So first of all, some prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchkalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. And my apologies for not being very well dressed. It's very cold, but also I'm still in a sort of convalescing, recovering type of condition. All right, so the art of improving the quality of japa. Japa, of course, is so extremely foundational in our lives in Krishna consciousness. We know that at the time of initiation, of first initiation, which is the only time where devotees officially take vows and express those vows openly in front of everyone. So we vow to follow the four regulative principles, and we vow to chant japa, not less than 16 rounds. So these are just extremely foundational vows. And these are very foundational aspects of Krishna consciousness. So, okay. Therefore, for us, from time to time, to take part in japa retreats, japa workshops, and different japa programs of different sorts. These things are just really, really essential, at least from time to time, to keep an eye on our japa and not just let ourselves get into sort of automatic pilot state. Just like, yeah, I can chant japa. I've been chanting for a long time. I just chant, and away we go. But actually, chanting japa, the chanting of Hare Krishna, and in this case, the chanting of Japa, we really have to bear in mind that it's very personal. It's not just a process. It's not just some practice, some sadhana we do as a regular sort of function, but it's very personal. As we're told, Srila Prabhupada said that Krishna consciousness, it is the development of our personal relationship with Krishna, but it's disguised as a process. It's disguised as a process that just something we do in a standard way every day. In a standard way we chant our rounds. In a standard way we attend the programs. But actually, really, this is all part of developing a personal relationship with Krishna, or reawakening our already existing but forgotten personal relationship with Krishna. So, therefore, when we're chanting our japa, we always have to bear this in mind. What am I doing? I'm not just performing a function, 16 rounds. There's 1, okay, then there's number 2 and number 3, and we just carry on, then there's number 16, and that's it. Just a regular daily function. Of course, it can be seen like that, and Prabhupada would even refer to it in that type of sense. But really, the essence of it all is that we're developing our personal relationship with Krishna. And when we're chanting, we are associating personally with Krishna. So, just like sometimes we give the example that someone comes to visit us. We're at home, wherever we are, at our place, and someone comes to see us, to spend some time with us. And when a person makes that effort, takes that trouble, then of course we have to give them proper attention. If we just neglect them and focus on something else and maybe just as a formality acknowledge their presence but not really take their presence to heart and focus on their presence and really and work with them, then, well, you could say in personal terms, it's insulting. It's insulting. If someone, particularly if we call someone, please come and spend time with me. If we call someone and they come, and then our attention is elsewhere, and maybe from time to time we acknowledge their presence, but just in a very flickering type of way, then what is that? That's terrible. We invited the person, we asked the person, please come, but then we neglect them. This is insulting, or in, you could say traditional Krishna conscious terms, this is offensive. This is offensive. This is aparad. So, chanting japa, when we pick up our Japa beads and we start chanting Japa, we're calling Krishna. Come, here I am. I want your association. Yeah. But if we're negligent when we're chanting, it's an offense. I think we all know that very clearly, but we should understand the background, how it's an offense, why it's an offense, and really try and take it seriously. On the other hand, if we really do give our attention to that other person who we have requested to come and give us their association, then, if we deal with them very nicely, attentively, with care, and making an effort to exchange with them, to interact with them, then that person is going to be pleased. And that's the principle in chanting Japa, that if we're very attentive, if we are chanting nicely, and then hearing the chanting nicely, and not being distracted by this and that and various other things, then if we're doing it nicely, Krishna is pleased. And when Krishna is pleased with you, that's the success of your life. Yeah. So these points need to be kept in mind. So now, Japa, of course, means to chant on our beads. Where are my big beads? Yeah, I want to show you some special beads I've got. Yeah, I think many of you will not have seen beads like these. They're Tulsi beads, but here they come. Look at these beads. Wow. Have you seen beads like these before? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Anyway, I just wanted to show you quickly. When we're down in Durban shortly, we'll have some Japa sessions with you, and we'll use these beads. So Japa means chanting on beads, to keep track of the number of times. That's said in the Shad Goswami Astakam of Srinivasacharya, that the 6 Goswamis, they would chant, keeping track of the number of times that they had chanted, that they were chanting. They didn't just chant. Of course, if you're attentive and you just chant, that's fine. But when it comes to Japa, Japa is something very specific. And as we mentioned, when a person receives first initiation, they take only these 2 vows. They're the only 2 vows which are officially in public, made in front of all the devotees and in front of everyone by every devotee. So chanting Japa means keeping track of the number of times, and we use our beads for that purpose. Therefore our beads, just the beads themselves, are important. You know, they shouldn't be taken just as another formality, just some way of keeping track of the number. I mean, in a sense, that's like the special function, but because that special function is so important, therefore the beads are so important, and we use tulsi. Yeah, we use tulsi, the most sacred wood, for chanting our japa. So therefore, devotees, what I'd like to give you now is a mantra. For it is a mantra, it is a prayer to our japa beads. And in terms of personalness, being personal about our japa, I think this is nice. There's all sorts of things I'm going to present to you, different verses, etc., which I'll make available to all of you. And I'll make this available to all of you also. This is the prayer to our japa beads. So listen to this. And you can chant this prayer if you like. You can chant this prayer. There's no harm at all, at the very least, to chant this prayer when you start chanting your japa. Avignam kuru male tvam, harinama japeshu cha, Shri Radha Krishnayor dasyam, dehi male tu prartaye. O mala, O japa beads, O mala, please destroy inauspiciousness in my chanting of the holy name of Lord Hare, and grant me the position of service to Radha and Krishna. This is all I pray, O Mala. So like this prayer is recognizing the presence and the substantial significance of the chanting beads, not simply as some sort of tool for keeping track of the number of times we've chanted, but something very sacred, and something which, if we relate nicely with the beads, will enrich our chanting. Yeah, it'll enrich our chanting. So this is a good place to start in terms of being personal with your japa beads. I remember when I first joined, when I got first initiation, there were no japa beads, at least in England. What we did, we went down Oxford Street, which was nearby the main street of London, to a bead shop, and we just bought some beads. And then we strung the beads. And those were our japa beads. And Prabhupada chanted on those beads. But of course, nowadays, when devotees are initiated, they always get a new set of tulsi beads. So, I mean, even just some ordinary wooden beads like what we had back so many years ago, if they chanted on by great devotee, and if we just really relate with them nicely, they're very beneficial, but particularly when they're sacred. Tulsi, so sacred, the most sacred. And we have this good fortune to chant on these most sacred beads. Well, if we do it nicely and take those beads, you could say, personally, take those beads very seriously, then that will enrich our chanting. So then, of course, there's a practice. I think we're all familiar with the practice, at least we're aware of it. The practice of before we actually chant our first round, and then each round, before we start chanting the next round, once we've finished the round before, then we go on to the next round and we chant Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. So I think we're all at least aware of this, and maybe all of us, or however many, so many of us do it. I know I've been doing it since the first time, I don't know when it was, but years ago, first time I was made aware that it's nice to do like this. But, so that's a regular practice for so many devotees. But I'm going to suggest now, in terms of improving the quality of our japa and really deepening our japa and enriching our japa experience, I'm going to suggest that at least, I would say, before you chant your first round, if you like, these things, they're not compulsory, but they're greatly beneficial, so they can be done if we like. So I'm going to suggest that you recite the Namashtakam of Srila Rupa Goswami, his 8 verses glorifying the chanting of the holy names. They're really amazing verses. As I said, I'm going to make all this, the notes that I have here, and the Namashtakam is there within these notes. I'm going to make them all available so you'll be able to use them, any or all of these things as much as you like. But what I'll do, without reading the Sanskrit, I'm going to read the translations of the Namashtakam verses, these 8 verses. And please, really try and listen very carefully. And if you're in a meditative mood, and if you're in the mood that we hope you're in, which is a mood of really wanting to improve the quality of your japa, then I think you'll find, if you listen very carefully, when I recite the translations of the 8 verses, I think you'll find that it's a really heartwarming and it's a very nice experience. So please listen. Here's verse 1. O Hari Nam, the tips of the toes of your lotus feet. Isn't that quite something? Hari Nam, the tips of the toes of your lotus feet, of the holy names, are constantly being worshipped by the glowing radiance emanating from the string of gems known as the Upanishads, the crown jewel of all the Vedas. You're eternally adored by liberated souls, such as Narada and Shukadev. O Hari Nam, I take complete shelter of you. O Hari Nam, O name sung by the sages, O transcendental syllables that bring bliss to the people. Even if you're spoken only once, And even if you're spoken disrespectfully, you at once remove the many harsh sufferings of everyone. Then verse 3, O Son of the Holy Name, even the dim light of your early dawn gives the sight of pure devotion to they who are blind to the truth. What learned person in this world is able to describe your transcendental glory? Verse 4, the Vedas declare that although meditation on impersonal Brahman cannot bring freedom from past karma, O holy name, your appearance at once makes all karma disappear. Verse 5, O holy name, I pray that my love for you in your many forms, such as, these are now some forms of the holy name, such as Agadamana, the crusher of Agasura, Yashoda Nandan, the son of Yashoda, Nanda Sunu, the son of Nanda, Kamala Nayana, lotus-eyed, Gopi Chandra, the moon of the gopis, Vrindavanendra, the king of Vrindavan, Pranata Karuna, merciful to the surrendered souls, and Krishna, may greatly increase. So he said at the beginning, I pray that my love for you in your many forms of these different names may greatly increase. Verse 6, O holy name, you are manifest in two forms. One, the Supreme Person described by the holy name, and two, the sound vibration of the holy name. Now, this is a subtle point. Try to at least let it settle in your mind and get some idea and realization of what is being said. O holy name, you're manifest in two forms. One, the Supreme Person described by the holy name, and two, the sound vibration of the holy name. We know that the second form is more merciful than the first. This is a deep transcendental point. The holy name of the Lord is more merciful than the Lord, although the holy name of the Lord is the Lord, but it's an achintya beda point. Yes, oneness and difference. So the second form, the sound vibration of the holy name, is more merciful than the first, the person described by the name. Even a person who commits many offenses to the first form may become always plunged into an ocean of bliss by serving the second with his voice. Anyway, you please think about that. Think about that. 7, O name that destroys the many sufferings of they who take shelter of you. O name that is the form of delightful and intense spiritual bliss. O name that is a festival of happiness for Gokula. O perfect and complete holy name of Lord Krishna, I bow down and offer my respects to you. I bow down and offer my respects to you. It's repeated. Namo Namaha. Repeating. And lastly, verse 8. O life of Narada's Veena, O flood of the waves of sweet nectar, O holy name of Lord Krishna, please sweetly appear on my tongue. So like I said, I'll make these things available, and I leave it up to you Obviously it takes some 5 minutes or whatever to read these all these verses, but for those who are really trying, or who would really like to try to go more deeply into the chanting of the holy names, to recite verses like these is highly recommended, rather than, of course, at the worst, the attitude can be somehow get them done. Just get your japa done. And then you've done it. But actually, for those who are trying to be or would like to be progressive in the development of their Krishna consciousness, to go more deeply into the chanting of the holy names, into the meanings, into the subtleties, the depths, the deeper aspects of the holy names themselves, of the processes of chanting them. It's really a very important part of the development of our Krishna consciousness. So, next thing I want to have a look at is, in a general sense, in a general broad type of sense, it's the point of mood. Mood. Of course, we've already, at the beginning there, we talked about dealing personally with the holy names and not being sort of offhand or negligent or inattentive. I'm sure many of you are aware that, at least I personally, in a sort of tongue-in-cheek way, but it's also not such a tongue-in-cheek way, I've said there are 3 rules when you chant japa. Tongue-in-cheek, but not tongue-in-cheek. First rule is we must chant attentively. Second rule is we must chant attentively. And third rule is, by all means, by any means, somehow or other, we must chant attentively. It may sound like a light-hearted point, but it's not. It's a deep point. It's really deep. Yes, attention. So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Harinam Chintamani, where he, or via Srila Haridas Thakur and Lord Chaitanya, the subject of the offenses, the 10 offenses in the chanting of the holy names, where that's being discussed. So the point is made that inattention is sort of like the mother of all offenses. Mother, in this context, means the source of birth and also the source of nutrition and like this. This is mother. Just like it said, Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually also says, Madhavatiti Bhakati Janani. That the Madhavatiti, the special occasions, the festivals of Madhava, of Lord Krishna, they are Bhakati Janani. Janani means mother. They're the mother of our bhakti, of our devotional mood, of our development in Krishna consciousness. So inattentive chanting is the mother of offenses. It's the mother of our lack of Krishna consciousness. It can be the mother, like the sustainer of our lack of progress. Yes, in chanting and in Krishna consciousness. It's a really important thing. So therefore, as I said, as far as I'm concerned, we have these 3 rules about chanting attentively. So, there are many things which can be said about this, and I will say a few different things. But the first thing I'll say is actually, I will read a few sentences from the famous Hare Krishna record made by Srila Prabhupada way back in 66 or something like that. I imagine so many of you have heard, Prabhupada chants the mantra, some kirtan for some time, and then Prabhupada speaks and gives like an explanation of what is the chanting. So Prabhupada says, the chanting is a spiritual call for the Lord and his energy to give protection to the conditioned soul. This chanting is exactly like the genuine cry of a child for its mother's presence. Mother Hare helps the devotee achieve the Lord Father's grace, and the Lord reveals himself to the devotee who chants this mantra sincerely. Yes. So, of course, this is another aspect of being personal too. Those of you who are parents, and just any of us who've had experience with children, we would know what it means when, as Prabhupada says, the child cries for his or her mother's presence genuinely. This is what Prabhupada says. It's exactly like the genuine cry of a child for the mother's presence. Yes, of course, children, they cry a lot, actually. And they cry for their mothers a lot. But sometimes, even though they're crying for the mother, it's not, serious. It's just some sort of exchange, trying to get the mother's attention, something like that. But when the child cries out in that mood of absolute dependence on the mother and just absolutely requiring the presence, the shelter of the mother, that's quite a cry. That's quite a cry. And I'm sure, I imagine that we've all experienced that at least sometimes, witnessed that when a child feels that if my mother does not come now and save me and help me, I will die immediately. Everything is finished. You know what I mean? Yeah, this is the genuine cry of the child for the mother. And this is actually what Srila Prabhupada is recommending in terms of the underlying mood in our actual chanting. As we chant, this, and it means the conception, the understanding in our minds of what is the significance of this chanting which I'm doing now. Yeah. So, in other words, it's definitely not just as a formality like the child for the mother's child says, oh, mother, please give me something. Not like that. Or like us when we're chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, just chanting away. It's not like that. This is something absolutely from the heart, in a mood of dependence, in a mood actually of desperation. Like I mentioned, the child feels, if the mother doesn't give me shelter now, I will die. The world will end. Yeah. So, someone might think that, yeah, okay. So, someone may feel or even doubt, is this how we should feel when we're chanting? Should we actually see our position like that and see the position of the holy names like that? Or should we just see the whole thing as, I've taken a vow to chant 16 rounds, and therefore I chant 16 rounds, and therefore right now I am chanting 16 rounds and I'll get them done. Of course, that sort of mood is better than just not caring at all or really being negligent. But actually, the mood, that genuine cry of the child for the mother, or of the fallen conditioned soul for the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the situation is exactly like that. And even more so than the child. The child is thinking, I'll die if the mother doesn't come. But the child will not die, and the mother will come. But still the child feels like that. Our situation, it's actually more dangerous. It's more dangerous in one sense. At least it's no less dangerous, in the sense that if we don't get the shelter of Krishna in the holy names, if we allow ourselves to just sort of drift away and to some casual form of chanting, then there's a distinct possibility we may just drift off into material life, and before we know it, we may find that we've lost our Krishna consciousness, and we've put ourselves in a very detrimental situation. So, yeah. So actually it's a fact that when we're chanting Japa, not that we should be crying, in that literal sense, but internally we should feel like that we desperately need the shelter of Lord Krishna in the form of his holy names. And we must get it by all means, and with the realization that if I don't get it, my situation can be extremely bad, too bad. this sort of mood should be there when we're chanting our japa, actually. Now, I want to make I feel it's an interesting and important technical point about the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra as compared to other, some you could say similar mantras or something like that, which include the names of Lord Krishna. So now, like I said, it's a technical thing, but it's an important technical thing, and I think that when you get the idea, you'll appreciate that it's not just sort of, some grammatical technicalness, but it's a really essential point of spiritual reality, that the whole Maha Mantra is in the vocative case, grammatically speaking. The vocative case. Vocative means we are appealing, we are asking, oh, such and such, please come here. This is vocative. It's requesting. It's not just glorification, like, oh, Krishna's great. Of course, Krishna is great, and it's great to acknowledge that Krishna's great. And the other mantras, generally, that are chanted, for example, in other sampradayas, they're in that mood of glorification. They're not in that vocative mood of request, of appealing. Oh Krishna, oh Srimati Radharani, please engage me in your service. So it's a very important point. It's a really important point that when we are chanting, we are not simply saying like, glory to the Lord. I mean, in a sense, we are also saying that, but we're not just saying, Krishna is glorious, Krishna is wonderful, but we're appealing, oh my Lord, oh Srimati Radharani, please give me shelter, please engage me in your service. So, prayer is very important. It's one of the 9 processes of devotional service. But you got to be careful what you pray for and how you pray. So the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, which we chant, is specifically a prayer in the mood of appeal, of request for mercy. And there are explanations, I don't actually have them here, of how Hare Krishna, how Hare is not just Radharani, but it's specifically appealing to Radharani with Krishna to engage me in your service. Yeah. So that's important, isn't it? It's not just like saying, Jai Sri Krishna. It's great. Jai Sri Krishna. It's wonderful. We must say it sometimes. But Hare Krishna is different, is much deeper than just Jai Sri Krishna or Jai Sri Radhe even. Yeah, because it's specifically an appeal for the mercy of the Lord and Srimati Radharani, so that they engage us in their service. Yeah. Whereas, for example, there in Vrindavan, if you're sort of tuned in enough to what's going on in Vrindavan, amongst the different spiritual Vaishnav groups and whoever, then you would know that the Nimbakas, they're one of the 4 sampradayas. You would know that the Nimbakas, they have what they call a Maha Mantra, which is, greatly similar to the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And it goes as follows: Radhe Krishna, Radhe Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Sham, Radhe Sham, Sham Sham, Radhe Radhe. Now what I'm saying here is that this mantra, that mantra of the Nimbakas, of course it's nice. It's a glorification, but it's not a prayer like the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It's not the same. It's a different category of prayer or mantra, you could say, which is essentially in the mood of glorification, which is great, but it's not the same as making that appeal for mercy, for being engaged in the service of Lord Krishna by Srimati Radharani's grace. So that's, it's a somewhat subtle point, but it's a very important point about to distinguish between our japa and others. Now, let's see. Okay, here's another point I'll just briefly touch on. It's very related. It's the point of humility. And we all know, 3rd verse of Shikshastakam, Trinadapi Sanichina Turorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahare. One should chant the holy names of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. And of course, only in such a state of mind will it be possible to chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Otherwise, in any other mood, it will not be possible. The chanting will be interrupted. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj makes the point. He says, raising my hands, I declare, everyone, please hear me, string this verse on the thread of the holy name and wear it on your neck for continuous remembrance. Trinadapi Sanichana, that verse. So, we must cry out, chant like the child, crying for the mother, feeling that absolute dependence on the mother, but we must also do it in a very humble spirit. So I suggest sometimes to devotees that to help us cultivate this mood, we can pray to Radharani and Krishna as follows. Dear Srimati Radharani, dear Lord Krishna, I know I'm a fool, but the problem is that I'm such a fool, I can't see how foolish I am. There's a lot of truth in that. So please help me to see the reality of what I am. If this happens, if we can do like this, then we can actually start developing a greater mood of humility, which is so important in Krishna consciousness. You know, in terms of prayers, you know, the Maha Mantra is a prayer. We just talked about that. We can pray Trinadapi Sanichena. We can pray for humility. We can pray in different ways. I want to now suggest that we, devotees, we try to appreciate some of the very special moods of prayer and special types of prayers offered by great devotees. We already read Namastakam. That's wonderful. Here's something also from Srila Rupa Goswami, and it's really deep. It is just really, really deep in terms of a mood of humility, in a mood of, you could say, like a child crying out, that mood of desperation that we need the shelter. If we can't get the shelter, we can't survive that type of mood. So these are some verses from Srila Rupa Goswami. These are verses from, let me just, Karpanya Panchika. Karpanya Panchika, that's what it is, of Srila Rupa Goswami, which ultimately is Rupa Goswami praying to Lord Krishna and Srimati Radharani for entrance in service into their pastimes in Vrindavan. But in the beginning he speaks some verses which are in that mood of absolute prayer, but they're also a little more general than let me enter Vrindavan and serve you directly. Please listen to these, because they are deep. A very poor man living in Vrindavan forest presents the following appeal at the lotus feet of Vrindavan's king and queen. O king, whose luster eclipses the splendor of newly blossomed blue lotus flowers. O queen, whose fair complexion devours the intense pride of yellow Gorochana. O king, whose splendid transcendental virtues are an eternally growing mountain of rubies. O queen, whose many transcendental virtues are desired by Parvati and all other beautiful girls. O king of Vrindavan, O queen of Vrindavan, bowing down before you with a choked voice, this foolish person appeals to you. Although I am not worthy to receive your mercy, please be merciful to me, for you are the crown jewels of all who are merciful. O king and queen, worshipped by the masters of all the worlds, they who are very merciful are filled with kindness, even for the unworthy and even for the offenders. Although I have not the dimmest shadow of pure devotion, which is the only way to attain you, still because you are the masters of playful, transcendental pastimes. Please be merciful to me. O my King and Queen, in this world, many powerful controllers and many playful persons are seen to be merciful to the impious and indifferent. Although I am the lowest and you are the highest, although I am a fool and you are the greatest philosophers, although I am wicked and you are the most saintly, and although I commit offenses when I think of you, still, O King and Queen, the shadow of whose holy names delivers one from a host of sins. Please be kind to this person who sometimes chants your holy names. It's just a few verses taken out. There's a lot more. But I think you get the idea. You see the mood there of humility, of sincerity, of complete concern. Please be merciful. This we need to cultivate in our chanting. So let me see. The last thing I'll mention today is, it's also a very important point. It's very, very important foundational point, is that because we are in fallen conditions, each one of us, we're all fallen souls. We're prone to have our own particular fallen natures. So in order to be able to do all these things, which we've been talking about the last hour or so, we need some help. And we need help, particularly from Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and the Panchatattva. So in Adi Lila Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 8, verses 30 and 31, it is said, if one chants the exalted holy name of the Lord again and again, and yet his love for the Supreme Lord does not develop, and tears do not appear in his eyes, it is evident that because of his offenses in chanting, the seed of the holy name of Krishna does not sprout. But if one only chants with some slight faith the holy names of Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, very quickly he's cleansed of all offenses. Thus, as soon as he chants the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, he feels the ecstasy of love for God. So Srila Prabhupada says in his purport to the second of these two verses, Adi Lila chapter 8 verse 31, Prabhupada says, in the beginning, one should very regularly chant Sri Gaurasundar's holy name, and then chant the holy name of Lord Nityananda. Thus one's heart will be cleansed of impure desires for material enjoyment. Then one can approach Vrindavan Dham to worship Lord Krishna. Unless one is favored by Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, there's no need to go to Vrindavan. For unless one's mind is purified, he cannot see Vrindavan, even if he goes there. So, I'm suggesting, devotees, try and do an interesting little thing. 1 minute a day, try to really attentively chant the name of Lord Chaitanya. And 1 minute a day, really diligently try to chant Lord Nityananda's name. Try that and see what happens. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, well, are there meant to be questions?